Okay, let's dive in. Think about this for a second. You've got a really complex problem on your hands. Maybe it's a huge project at work, maybe something else, but lots of moving parts and, well, things just keep going wrong, you know? You're burning through time, resources, and you really want to fix it, but where do you even start?
It's such a common feeling, isn't it? That sense of being overwhelmed, looking for that one magic bullet fix.
Exactly. And that's actually what we're digging into today. We're looking at a very specific, high-stakes example of problem solving.
Right. Tackling quality issues and boosting efficiency in pharmaceutical manufacturing. We're talking about making sure those little pills are absolutely perfect.
Yeah, the ones you might not even think twice about taking. The stakes are incredibly high there.
They really are. Even a tiny mistake can have big consequences, not just for the company's bottom line, but potentially for patient safety. It's serious stuff.
And our deep dive today, it's actually based on this fantastic project example document. It's called DOE Project Sample Example, put together by Avnish Pandey at EcoVerx Solutions.
It's a great example. It really lays out a clear plan for improvement using something called design of experiments, or DOE.
So let's set the stage. What was the actual problem they were facing?
Well, the document highlights a pretty common challenge in the industry: issues with tablet compression. They were seeing an average defect rate of 7.8% over 3 months.
Wow, 7.8%. That sounds like a lot in pharma.
It really is, especially when you think about the sheer volume they produce. That 7.8% isn't just a number on a page. It means costly rework, throwing away materials, messing up schedules. It's a major headache.
And I saw something about specific events causing stoppages, too.
Yeah, exactly. Things like sticking, where the tablet material literally sticks to the machine parts. That was causing unplanned stops about 6 times per batch.
6 times per batch. That's incredibly disruptive.
Absolutely. It kills efficiency.
Hmm.
So the mission for this project, and what we're exploring, is how they use a really systematic, data-driven method to cut those defects.
What was the target?
They aim to slash the combined visible defect rate by at least 50%, getting it down to 3.0% or less. And also to boost the yield, the amount of good product, by at least 1.5%.
And that translates to cost savings, I assume?
Big time. The document mentions that even a 1% reduction in defects can save millions in local currency each year. So the financial incentive is huge.
Okay, so how did they approach it? You mentioned DOE, but what was the overall plan?
It was a neat 2-phase approach. First, a screening phase to quickly figure out which factors, out of many possibilities, were the most important influencers, the vital few, basically.
Right.
And then phase 2 was optimization, taking those critical factors and really fine-tuning the settings to find the best, most robust operating conditions.
Okay, that makes sense. But before we get into how they fixed it, maybe we should clarify what these defects actually are. What can go wrong with making a simple tablet?
Yeah, it seems simple, but there's a surprising number of ways it can go wrong. The project focused on a few key ones. There's capping. Yeah, where the top or bottom surface of the tablet kind of lifts off like a little cap. Then there's lamination.
Like layers.
Exactly. The tablet splits into horizontal layers.
Yeah.
And then the one we mentioned, sticking or picking, where bits of the tablet get stuck to the machine's punches or dies.
Ah, the culprit behind those stoppages.
That's the one. Very frustrating. But it's not just those visual things. They also worry about weight variation, making sure all tablets weigh consistently the same.
Right, for dosage accuracy.
Precisely. And hardness tablets can be too soft and crumble, or too hard and not dissolve properly in the body. And related to that is friability.
Friability, like how easily it breaks or chips.
You got it, especially during handling and packaging. You don't want them falling apart before they even get to the patient.
Okay, so a whole list of potential problems. And remind us quickly, how are tablets generally made? What's the process flow?
Sure. It usually starts with granulation, mixing the ingredients and forming granules. Then lubrication and blending, adding stuff to help the flow and prevent sticking. Then the main event, compression, where the powder is pressed into shape. After that, in-process quality control checks and maybe a coating step at the end.
Got it. So lots of steps, lots of potential issues. Now back to this design of experiments, or DOE. How does that actually help untangle this mess?
Well, DOE is essentially a structured way to run experiments. Instead of just changing one thing at a time, which is slow and often misses interactions.
Right, like fiddling with one knob, then another.
Exactly. DOE lets you change multiple factors simultaneously in a planned way. It helps you understand not just if a factor matters, but how much it matters and how it interacts with other factors. It's about getting real data, not just relying on hunches.
Moving from guesswork to science. I like it. And the project had a really specific goal, didn't it? Using the SMART framework.
Yes, very specific.
Yeah.
Reduce visible defects to below 3.0%. Get weight variation, the RSD, down to 1.5% or less. And do it all within 8 weeks.
Ambitious timeline.
Very. And crucially, they had to do all this while maintaining what they called critical quality attributes, or CQAs.
CQA.
Yeah, things like the drug potency assay, the hardness range, like 7 to 10 kilopons, low friability, under 0.8%, and making sure the tablet dissolves quickly enough, disintegration time under 15 minutes. These are non-negotiable quality standards.
Wow. So hitting multiple targets simultaneously. Who's usually involved in a project like this? It sounds like you need a mix of experts.
You absolutely do. The source highlights a cross-functional team. You'd have a project lead, often a Lean Six Sigma black belt like Avnish Pandey in this example, who guides the methodology.
Okay.
Then a manufacturing SME, someone who deeply understands the compression machine. QA/QC folks for quality oversight and data checks. Formulation or R&D scientists who know the materials.
Right, the ingredient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maintenance people for the machine setup and tooling. Yeah, and very importantly, a data analyst to help design the experiments and crunch the numbers, usually using specialized software.
Makes sense. It takes a village, as they say. What's usually the biggest challenge getting that team working together?
Often it's communication and alignment. Different departments might have their own theories about the problem. DOE provides that common language of data that everyone can rally around. It helps break down those silos.
I can see that. So the team is assembled. Before they start experimenting, they need to figure out what to experiment on. How do they identify all those potential X factors that might be causing the problems?
That's a critical brainstorming step. They use tools like process maps, maybe a SIPOC diagram, or often an Ishikawa diagram, the fishbone diagram.
Oh, yeah, the cause and effect diagram.
Right, to map out absolutely everything that could be influencing tablet quality. It forces a really thorough look at the whole system.
And what kind of factors are we talking about? Give us some examples.
It's a broad range. Under material attributes, you might have the moisture level in the granules, LOD, the particle size, the percentage of fine particles, how much binder or lubricant is used, even the temperature of the material.
Okay, so the ingredients themselves.
Definitely. Then there are the compression parameters, the machine settings. Things like pre-compression force, main compression force, how fast the turret spins, the feeder speed, how deep the punches go.
The knobs and dials on the machine.
Pretty much. But also, tooling the condition of the punches and dies. Like how rough is the punch tip surface? Is the die worn?
Huh. I wouldn't have thought of tool roughness.
It can matter, especially for sticking. Then you've got environmental factors, room temperature, humidity, and even setup and methods like how long you blend the lubricant in or the order you add ingredients.
Wow, okay. That's a huge list. How on earth do they narrow that down to something they can actually test in an experiment?
Good question. They don't test everything. They prioritize using a tool called FMEA failure mode and effects analysis.
FMEA.
It helps them rank the potential factors based on how severe the effect could be, how often it might happen, and how easily they can detect it. This lets them focus the experiment on, say, the top 8 to 10 most likely critical factors for that initial screening phase.
Okay, so they've used FMEA to narrow it down to maybe 8 or 10 factors. Now, phase 1, screening. What's the main goal here again?
The goal of screening is really efficiency. With those 8-10 factors, you want to quickly and reliably identify which ones actually have a statistically significant impact on the problems, the defects, the weight variation, etc. It's about finding the vital few that really drive the outcomes.
Separating the signal from the noise, basically.
Exactly. You don't want to waste time later optimizing factors that don't really matter much.
And what kind of experimental design is good for that?
For screening, you often use designs like fractional factorials or Plackett-Berman. They're designed to test a lot of factors with relatively fewer runs compared to testing every single combination.
Efficient.
Very. And they usually include center points, too. These are runs done right in the middle of all the factor settings.
Why do they do that?
It's a clever way to check if the effects are linear, just straight lines, or if there's some curvature involved. It gives you an early hint if things are more complex.
Ah, okay. Can you give us some concrete examples of factors and the levels they test in screening?
Sure. So for pre-compression force, they might test a low level, say 2 kilonewtons, Kn, and a high level, maybe 6 kilonewtons. Same for main compression force, maybe 8 kilobin and 12 kilonewtons.
So just 2 levels, typically.
Often, yes, for screening, low and high. For turret speed, maybe 15 RPM and 35 RPM. For a material factor like granule LOD, moisture, perhaps 1.5% and 2.5%. Lubricant percentage, maybe 0.6% and 1.0%. Even punch tip roughness, they might compare punches with a low roughness, say 0.05 millimeters, versus higher roughness,
Uh,
0.15 millimeters.
Gotcha. So they're systematically trying different combinations of these low and high settings. How many experimental runs does that typically involve?
For a screening design like this, the document suggests around 40 runs is pretty typical. Each run is a unique combination of those factor settings.
Okay, 40 runs. And to make those runs meaningful, the measurements have to be spot on, right? How do they ensure data quality?
Absolutely critical. They put a lot of effort into measurement system analysis, or MSA. Before starting the main experiments, they need to trust their data.
How do they do that?
For visual defects judged by inspectors, they do something called an attribute agreement analysis, CPA. It's like testing the inspectors to make sure they're all identifying defects consistently. They aim for a high agreement score, like a kappa value of 0.8 or more.
So calibrating the humans.
Essentially, yes. And for measurement equipment, like the balance for weighing tablets or the hardness tester, they do a variable gauge R&R study.
R&R.
Repeatability
Yeah.
and reproducibility. It checks how much variation is coming from the gauge itself versus the operators using it. They want that variation to be low, typically less than 10% of the total process variation, GRR.
Makes sense. No point optimizing if your measurements are shaky. What about sample sizes during the runs?
They need enough data from each run. The example mentions taking at least 500 tablets per run to assess visual defects like capping, and at least 30 tablets for measurements like weight or hardness.
And data integrity overall. Super strict. They follow AL's CQA plus principles. That means data must be attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, plus complete, consistent, enduring, and available. Think time-stamped electronic records, audit trails, no scribbled notes later.
Right, proper documentation.
Yeah.
So they run the experiments, collect all this high-quality data.
Yeah.
Then what?
Right.
How do they analyze it to find those vital few?
The analysis involves statistics, of course. They'll often start by cleaning and maybe transforming the data, like percentages sometimes need adjustment for analysis. Then they use ANOVA, analysis of variance.
ANOVA.
Yeah, it tells them which factors and maybe which interactions between factors are statistically significant, meaning their effect is unlikely to be just random chance. They also use graphical tools. Pareto charts are great for visualizing which factors have the biggest impact, ranking them.
So you can clearly see the big hitters.
Exactly. And they'll look at effects plots and model diagnostics to make sure the statistical model fits the data well. Based on all that, they'll identify the, say, 3 to 5 factors that really matter the most. Those move on to phase 2. Okay. And you mentioned something about ethical stopping criteria earlier.
Yes. That's basically a safety net during the experiments. If a particular combination of settings produces really bad tablets, like if friability goes way too high, say over 1%, or they take way too long to disintegrate, maybe over 30 minutes, they stop that specific run.
Why?
Well, it ensures they don't waste resources making tons of completely unusable product, and it maintains a basic level of quality control even while experimenting. It's about responsible experimentation.
Gotcha. Okay, so phase 1 narrows it down to the critical 3 of 5 factors. Now we move to phase 2, optimization. What's the specific goal here?
So now that they know which factors are the key players, the goal of optimization is to build a more detailed map of how those factors influence the outcomes. They want to find the precise settings, the sweet spot that gives the best possible results for quality and yield.
Finding the perfect recipe.
Pretty much. And defining a robust operating window around it.
Does the experimental design change for this phase?
Yes, it usually does.
Yeah.
For optimization, they often switch to designs like central composite design, CCD, or box-Benken designs. These are more sophisticated.
How so?
They include more levels for each factor, not just low and high. This allows them to model curvature much more accurately. Remember how center points in screening hinted at curvature? Now they explicitly map it out.
Okay, so they get a more detailed picture.
Exactly. They'll take those 3 to 5 critical factors identified in phase 1 and explore their effects across their full practical range, maybe pre-compression from 2 all the way up to 6 kN, turret speed from 15 up to 35 RPM. This detailed mapping helps find the true optimum settings.
And the output often involves those contour plots, right? Like topographical maps?
Yes, response surface plots and contour plots are key outputs. They visually show how the responses like defect rates or hardness change as you adjust the factor settings. You can literally see the peaks of good performance on the map.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned earlier that they often have multiple goals, sometimes conflicting ones. How do they handle that in optimization? Minimizing defects and maximizing yield, for instance.
That's a really important point. It's rare you're optimizing just one thing. In this example, they wanted to minimize capping, minimize lamination, minimize sticking events.
Okay, reduce all the bad stuff.
Right. But also hit a target for weight variation, RSD 1.5%, hit a target for hardness around 8.5 kP, minimize friability, maybe at 0.6%, and maximize the overall yield. That's a lot to juggle.
Yeah, how do you balance all that? What if improving yield makes friability worse or something?
That's where the desirability function comes in. It's a really clever statistical technique.
Desirability function, tell me more.
Basically, you assign a desirability score, usually from 0 to 1, to each outcome based on how well it meets its goal. 0 is unacceptable, 1 is perfectly ideal. Then you assign importance weights to each of those goals.
So you decide what matters most.
Exactly. In the example, maybe minimizing defects gets the highest weight, say a 5, maximizing yield gets a 4, hitting the hardness target gets a 3, weight consistency a 4, friability a 3. You decide the priorities.
Okay.
The software then combines all these individual desirabilities and their weights into one overall global desirability score. The goal of the optimization becomes finding the factor settings that maximize this combined score. It finds the best possible compromise across all objectives.
That's really smart. It's a mathematical way to find the best overall balance point.
Precisely. It acknowledges that perfection on all fronts might be impossible, so it finds the most desirable, achievable outcome based on your priorities. It's a very practical tool for real-world trade-offs.
So after all this analysis, what's the final output? What do they hand over to the manufacturing team?
The ultimate outputs are very practical. They get visual tools like those contour plots showing the optimal operating region. They define a design space.
The design space.
Yeah, it's the multi-dimensional combination of factor ranges that has been proven through the experiment to consistently deliver acceptable quality. It gives manufacturing operational flexibility within validated boundaries.
So not just one single setting, but a safe zone to operate in.
Exactly. And within that space, they'll also recommend specific control set points, the target settings for production, along with allowable tolerances around those set points. So the operators get very clear, scientifically backed instructions on how to run the process optimally.
Wow. Okay, let's just quickly recap this whole journey. We started with a really tricky, expensive problem tablets going wrong in pharma manufacturing, causing defects and delays.
Right, a defect rate near 8%, lots of process interruptions.
And instead of just tweaking things randomly, they used this very structured two-phase design of experiments approach. Phase 1, screening, to find the vital few factors.
Out of the long list of possibilities, using efficient designs and solid data.
And then phase 2, optimization, to really map out the effects of those key factors and find the best operating conditions using more detailed designs and that clever desirability function to balance multiple goals.
Yeah, finding that robust sweet spot, the design space, and defining clear control settings.
And the result is a significant drop in defects, better yield, and real cost savings. It really highlights how much careful engineering and science goes into something we might take for granted, like a pill.
Absolutely. It's about moving from fixing problems reactively to proactively designing quality and efficiency into the process itself, transforming those complex variables into predictable, controllable outcomes.
And I think the big takeaway for you listening is that even though this was a pharma example, the principles are so broadly applicable.
Definitely. Anywhere you have a complex process with multiple inputs affecting outcomes.
It really shows the power of breaking down problems, measuring things carefully, and using a structured, data-driven approach like DOE to figure out what truly matters and how to optimize it, moving away from gut feel.
Towards scientific understanding and control. It's about building robustness, making quality happen by design, not by chance.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Think about some persistent challenge or inefficiency in your own work, maybe a recurring defect in your process, whatever that might look like. How could identifying its X factors, the things that influence it, and applying a systematic, data-driven approach, maybe even a simplified version of this, help you not just patch the problem, but truly optimize the process for the best possible result?